of the World Economic Forum on Africa. He's also from British Telecom's group, BT Group, and he's the chairman, and he joins us now. Thank you for joining us. So, Mike, Africa's competitiveness, one of the big themes. Africa has been rising, but there's concern that we could stagnate. We won't sustain those growth levels off the charts in future. If there's one thing you could take away, or one thing that you think these discussions should spark, what should it be?
Yeah, well, I think we should start first with a positive. I mean, what this forum has really emphasised for me is the opportunities for Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. You know, the resources, the demographics, the population, the progress that's been made is fantastic. And here we've talked a lot about the things that are critical to ensuring that continues, the things that we all know: infrastructure, education, you know, dealing with those things, pursuing democracy in many parts of the continent, eliminating corruption. These are all things that are in progress and would facilitate investment. Your free trade deals that you're beginning to do, the one you're about to sign, the tripartite, on June the 10th, is very important to intra-African trade, to encourage that, to remove borders, to transport of goods and people, which will encourage sort of public-private partnerships, investment, and really allow Africa to achieve its potential. Let's
talk about that intra-African trade. Yeah. I've been speaking to people from East Africa, and it's happening there. But a lot of commentators say we've been talking for years and years about linking up the different regions, and it's not happening. Do you think there's political will? And I mean, it's very complicated. I walked into a forum yesterday, and somebody was saying, look at the EU. Things seem to be unraveling. So well, how do we push this ahead?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen here at the forum and at the breakfast this morning, co-chaired by President Zuma and former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, is the intense political will to move forward across the continent, the North Corridor, the Central Corridor, to really make these infrastructure investments that are so critical. So I think that's really tangible and there. I think what I hear and what I see, what's happening in West Africa, what's happening in East Africa, is a real desire to move forward to a sort of common market. And you're right, but on the European Union, that we should learn here in Africa the good things about the European Union. 500 million people trading, you know, together with free movement of labour and goods with much reduced distribution costs. You can also learn here in Africa from the mistakes perhaps that the European Union has made in some of its applications of its currency. Some of the regulatory environment has not been encouraging to growth and cross-border activity. But it's been a long and important, development period for the European Union. So there's a lot to learn in both directions, I think, for Africa.
Let's talk about infrastructure, and I'd like to know if something came up. This focus comes as it was announced that Transnet is accepting $30 billion from China, and there's often this debate. Funding from China doesn't come with the conditions that it does from the West often, but are there strings attached? Should we welcome a diversity of investment?
Yeah. Well, I think you should. I think, first of all, it's very interesting to see the Africa Infrastructure Initiative, which has got 51 projects costing $68 billion to be completed by 2020 on ICT, on energy and transport. That's a big figure. And it does require public-private partnership. It does require, I think there was a discussion yesterday around what banking could do more across Africa to invest, as well as foreign investment. And that foreign investment, I think, inevitably is going to come from different areas, some from Europe, United States, some from China, and it's for South Africa to determine the conditions that it thinks are acceptable for investment from a political perspective.
You are looking out from without, looking at Africa. Are global companies still seeing that potential, these huge consumer markets to sell their goods? And beyond that, can they help us to integrate into these global value chains as well? So it's not only intra-African trade, but it's being part of this huge market.
Absolutely. I mean, what people are really, I think Africa is at a crossroads. It's been developing for the last 10 years and improving. Businesses are looking at it, and we see in BT, what we do here is provide networks for companies investing here, global companies running their networks, as well as African and South African companies, investing across the region and across the world. So absolutely, people are looking here for investment because, as I say, the resources and the demographics. And as commodity prices go down, it's important to go to production here in Africa. That's also about education of the people, but it creates enormous opportunity for companies in emerging middle class, making sure there's education as we go into more of the manufacturing area and production area rather than the export of your assets through commodities. And I think there's a huge interest in Africa in the south. And there's some very important aspects. The English language is very helpful for inward investment. I think there's long history to Europe and Africa. So there's lots of connections can make this work. There's a lot of interest in the United States, as you've seen, a lot of interest from China. So I think Africa has an enormous amount going for it. It has significant amounts of the world's undeveloped land. And when we look at the need to feed the population, there's enormous opportunities in agriculture as well as with your large workforce. But we've got to deal with the very high levels of youth unemployment, which is about education and investment and productivity, ICT, that allows that to happen.
Well, let's talk about ICT because we're still not seen as innovative. Yet I think there are things happening. The South African banking sector, quite innovative. There's this opportunity, it's been said, to leapfrog. So people don't have fixed lines, but everybody's got a cell phone and cell phone banking and retailing.
Exactly.
Are you seeing positive signs?
No, absolutely. And you're following exactly the same patterns that we see in Europe and the United States, which is, huge demand for ICT, for video, for data, through, smartphones, through everyone's demanding broadband. Here you've got an enormous challenge because of the size of the continent and dealing with the infrastructure you need. And it's mixture between fiber hubs in the cities, between copper, between satellite, between microwave kind of distribution of communication. And it's critical to productivity, to education, and getting that across Africa and across South Africa is really important to facilitate that. But absolutely we see that happening. I happen also to be deputy chairman of Barclays, which has ABSA here in South Africa. And you see how that's moving also on mobile banking and what people are trying to do. And it's exactly following what's going on, in Europe and the rest of the world. Okay,
so a lot of challenges, but a lot of reason for hope and optimism.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. Eben, I was chatting to Sir Michael Rake, the chair of BT Group, and of course one of the co-chairs of this World Economic Forum on Africa. It's back to you in Johannesburg.
Thank you very much there to Francis Hurd as we wrap up Newsroom's coverage of the World Economic Forum on Africa. Before we wrap today, a quick look